Excellencies, distinguished delegates, dear guests, thank you for joining today's briefing on the Food Systems Summit, which is being webcast and shared on social media platforms. We will first hear opening remarks from the Deputy Secretary-General, followed by remarks by the Special Envoy of the Secretary-General for the Food Systems Summit, before opening the floor to hear your comments and questions. We will start immediately, so Deputy Secretary-General, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. So that I am. Yeah. Okay. Excellencies, thank you for joining this virtual briefing on the Food Systems Summit that will be convened by the Secretary-General next year. I'd like to welcome colleagues that are joining us online from New York and Rome. The Rome-based UN agencies are playing a critical role in leadership on this topic, and I welcome this whole-of-system approach. As we begin to look ahead to the annual high-level week of the General Assembly, including the first annual SDG moment, it's an opportune time to share with you an update on the preparations that are already underway for the Food Systems Summit in 2021. I'm pleased to be joined today by the Special Envoy of the Secretary-General for the Food Systems Summit, Dr. Agnes Kalibata, who has been amazing with her team in turning around such important processes for the success of the Food Systems Summit over the last few months. We've shared a short background note in advance of this meeting, and I look forward to hearing your views and answering any questions. Excellencies, the Secretary-General announced his intention to convene this summit to accelerate much-needed action on the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, our globally agreed blueprint for people and planet. This decision built on an increasing recognition that transforming our food systems must be central in our effort to achieve the SDGs. For example, food systems and nutrition were identified in the 2019 Global Sustainable Development Report as key entry points to accelerate the worldwide transition to a more sustainable trajectory. Moreover, in the ministerial declaration in the 2018 High-Level Political Forum, member states anticipated that this finding and specifically called on all stakeholders to adopt a sustainable food system approach. The urgency of this transition has been underscored by the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. We need to rapidly rethink how we produce, process, market, and consume our food and dispose of our waste. We should turn the crisis into an opportunity to rebalance and transform our food systems, making them more inclusive, sustainable, and resilient. This transition is already underway. In all countries, stakeholders from every sector are beginning to take action and change behaviors in support of a new vision of how food arrives on our plate. They are increasingly aware that food systems are one of the most powerful links between humans and the planet. They want to see a shift in these patterns in a way that enhances inclusive economic growth and opportunity, while also safeguarding our biodiversity and the global ecosystems that sustain life. We have before us an unprecedented opportunity to capitalize on this growing movement and craft a catalytic moment for public mobilization and actionable commitments to accelerate our progress. Excellencies, as a foundational element of the decade of action to deliver the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030, the Food Systems Summit recognizes that we can transform our world in the next decade, but only by working together in solidarity. Only together can we end extreme poverty, win the race against climate change, and conquer injustices and gender inequality. Together we can embrace the complexity of our modern world and take action to ensure equity and inclusion for all people. Together, as we recover from the impacts of COVID-19, we can also build the future that we want. The summit will therefore seek to unleash bold new actions, innovative solutions, and strategies that will transform our food systems and leverage these shifts to deliver progress across all of the Sustainable Development Goals. The need is urgent and our ambition is high. And for this reason, this must not just be another conference. We must act together. The Food Systems Summit should be thought of as a people summit, a solution summit, recognizing that food systems touch on all of society and all stakeholders. Every government, organization, and individual needs to do more, I will turn to the Special Envoy in a moment to provide a more detailed update of our progress and plans for the road ahead. But I do want to highlight a few elements. First, I'd like to thank the regional groups for coming together and nominating 2 member states each from your regions to serve on the advisory committee. We held our first meeting in early July, and I thank each and every one of them for their engagement and for ensuring that they brought broader regional perspectives to the table. Second, we expect a strong interface between science, policy, and action through this process. And I'm pleased that both the Independent Science Group and the system-wide UN Task Force have also held their first meetings. Third, the Envoy will go into more detail on the 5 action tracks that will be at the center of the process ahead. But we will follow up this meeting and provide more information and invite you to express your interest in engaging in the work of the action tracks. We will be seeking your expressions of interest by the end of September. Finally, we will also be looking to you to support the convening of national dialogues on food systems at home. Food systems vary by location, and our approaches must be rooted in local and regional realities. We hope that you will join in facilitating these multi-stakeholder discussions that are guided by the values of sustainable development, informed by science and experience, and oriented towards action. Where possible, our UN country teams will be your partners, and we will see this as an important opportunity to reflect on the role local food systems play in making progress on sustainable development, and to identify actions that help countries and local communities overcome barriers to more rapid progress. They will be complemented by dialogues undertaken independently, both within countries and internationally. Excellencies, colleagues, following today's briefing, we can anticipate more activity around this process as we move towards UNGA and World Food Day in October. It is the Secretary-General's intention to communicate to you by then the approach on the venue and the timing of the summit in light of the current global crisis. Any views that you have on this aspect are certainly welcome. The Secretary-General and I are incredibly enthusiastic and excited about the journey ahead, and we look forward to your engagement and support. I look forward to today's discussion, but first, let me hand over to our guide on this journey, our Special Envoy, Dr. Kalibata. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for those kind remarks and your introductions. Excellencies, delegates, I have an opportunity to present to you the progress we've made so far in the preparatory process of the summit, and I do have a presentation that is going to be put, and I'll take you through the presentation so you get a sense of the progress that has been made. If we can move on, please. So, High Excellency, the Deputy Secretary-General has already outlined the criticality of the summit, but I just wanted to call your attention to the fact that when last year, when the Secretary-General called for transforming our food systems, he did recognize 2 things. One, that we are completely, in a number of tracks, we are quite off track in delivering on SDGs. 2, that there's consensus and good evidence that transforming our food systems is also part of the solution to the problems we face today. So the work we are starting here is really to take the conversation. If you could stay on that slide, yeah. The work we are doing now in the Secretariat and the work that we've started in the summit is really taking the conversation of the summit to the world to raise global awareness of the need for the transformation of the food system, to unleash bold new action, innovation, strategies that could help transform our food system and could help us deliver on the SDGs. Next slide, please. So we are focusing on 5 objectives as a way of advancing the Food Systems Summit. These objectives are all interconnected, and they are presented here as 5 objectives, but again, I want to underscore that they are interconnected. They will be forming the basis of our tracks. And if I go through them one by one, the first one, which is a critical one, ensuring access to safe and nutritious food, does recognize that 1 in every 3 people obese, does recognize that we still have 700 million people that are struggling with getting access to enough food. So that part will be addressed through an action track, which I will go into the details of later. Then we do recognize the need to shift to sustainable consumption patterns, recognizing fully well that we are sitting amidst a lot of waste in our food system, but also that our diets and how we produce food may not be sustainable. Then we will focus on boosting nature positive production at sufficient scale, recognizing fully well that part of how we produce our food is contributing to our emissions, contributing to degradation of our environment and our biodiversity. Someone was telling me the other day that the ecosystem that has been degraded because of agricultural production and agricultural systems is equivalent to the size of Latin America. I mean, just think about that and what could continue happening if we continue business as usual. The next one is advancing equitable livelihoods and value distribution. This has become very clear, especially with COVID-19. There's a whole lot of inclusion that we need to build into our system, recognizing that we have challenges with creating sufficient and decent employment, especially for young people in a continent that is really I mean, in a globe that is really generally young. So the last one would be building resilience to vulnerabilities, again, recognizing that we have major vulnerabilities in our environment. And again, COVID-19 has really shown us that irrespective of anywhere in the world, we do have major vulnerabilities in our system and we need to address those. But also we are sitting amidst climate change and major issues around climate change that are impacting how people and the resilience of our systems are working, and these have to be addressed. We also do recognize that there are a number of levers of change, and I've listed them here. I'll not read them, but those levers are very critical to us unlocking the actions that we'll be taking, and we do recognize that we will have to embed them as cross-cutting levers into the work that we are doing. Next slide. In this slide, we come to what we expect as summit outcomes. I started off by saying that we need to raise ambition, we need to raise awareness, but the whole idea is really to elevate public discourse around our food systems and what we could do differently to get back on track. The whole idea is to get significant action that can get us back on track with regards to SDGs, recognizing fully well that, again, being off track or walking in the opposite direction is not where we want to be. We've already communicated these SDGs, and what we need to do is to raise ambition with regards to what we are doing. The next thing we are looking at is how we really put in place a high-level summary of rules or guidelines that can help countries and communities anywhere in the world that want to take action to be able to take action that really can help us again get back on track. Lastly, I hope that when we do engage these communities, whether it's governments, whether it's businesses, whether it's civil society across the world, citizens, indigenous communities, that we do build in a mechanism of tracking what we are doing, that we can every so often come back to the drawing board and take stock of the progress we are making so that we can see whether we are making progress or not. Next slide. So at the end of the day, we are structuring this summit in two ways. We want this summit to be a people's summit and we want this summit to be a solution summit. That's why what the Secretary-General asked of us, and that's what we'll be doing. So I'm going to take you through how we are structuring the summit instruments, what I'll call the summit instruments, but also the mechanisms of how we plan to come through on the summit. Next slide. So we have designed a number of work streams that will help us come through, that really brings a lot of evidence from different places. And these work streams are building on how the Secretariat itself is designed. So what we are trying to do is we've cut our work into work stream that focus on evidence and knowledge, and that work stream will work with the scientific group. We've looked at work streams that focus on initiatives that can be transformative, and that is sitting under the action tracks. Then we are looking at engagement work streams, which are sitting under dialogues, and I'll talk to you about them to you in a second. And then, of course, we do have a whole campaign around advocacy and communication to be able to elevate the summit and to take it to the world and ensure that everybody is discussing and getting a sense of what needs to change. And then all these work streams will, and the work that is happening in all these work streams will culminate into summit moments and pre-summit moments, again, which we'll talk to you as we go on. We are looking at 3 major areas of delivery, and probably the most important of what we are calling summit support structures, which I'm going to talk to you about. But also we are designing a digital platform that will enhance, reach, and support the work of the Secretariat. So in the next slide, I'll talk to you about the support structures of the summit. Many of them, some of them, the Deputy Secretary-General has alluded to. Next slide, please. Excuse me. So the summit structures, as indicated here, the most important structure chaired by the Deputy Secretary-General herself is really the steer, excuse me, is the steer of the summit. We have a number of countries sitting on this advisory committee. We have 12 countries sitting on the advisory committee. But so do we have people from different walks of life, indigenous people, civil society, young people, researchers, but also international organizations are represented on this body. The idea is really for the advisory committee to be your eyes and ears with regards to how we steer the summit forward, but also to help guide the Secretariat's work as we take the summit process forward. Then there's the scientific committee that is made of over 25 experts, independent experts that are looking at the science of the food system summit, but also the science of our food systems. Their work is anchored in a lot of what is already happening in the CGIR, in CFS. But really, what they are trying to do here is to look at where we are coming from, what it's telling us, and where we need to be going, and how to really start designing a path for the future, really anchored in evidence of what would work, what is likely to scale, or what would scale, and how we would turn things around. So this group is, again, like I said earlier, is largely an independent group of scientists that have huge networks that are representative of the global scientific network, and that will be the chair of this group also sits in the advisory committee and is part of the DSG's team that is steering the whole summit. The Champions Network is designed as a network, not as a set of champions. We've thought through this a lot because, again, we recognize that the summit needs to touch as many people, if not billions of people, as many people as we can, and really having a mechanism that allows us to reach into huge networks of people and build a cascade of champions rather than a set of champions is what we think that will work for us, and I will explain that a little bit more. We then put in place the UN task force with the help and support of the DSG. And this UN task force is really to bring the UN voice, recognizing fully well that there's a lot of work that is sitting within the UN, but also recognizing that the UN has a huge number of institutions whose effort, whose work we need on board, and we needed to make sure that they have a voice and a mechanism of channeling their energy and their work. In fact, before this meeting, I was just meeting the UN task force, really listening to them, but also helping them understand how they would link to other parts of the summit. Next slide. So then the other part of the summit is the action tracks. The action tracks are designed, like I said earlier, to help us achieve the objectives of the summit that I talked about earlier. So action track number 1 would focus definitely on objective number 1, which is ensuring access to safe and nutritious food for all. This action track recognizes fully well that, again, we still are hungry in parts of the world, and recognizes fully well that our food could be of more value to us as human beings. Then the next action track recognizes the need that we need to do in shifting how we consume and use food, recognizing that how we use food is impacting our health, but is also impacting our environment. For example, waste alone resulting from food is contributing 8% to emissions. And this is something that we need to think about, but also really take the conversation to consumers and consumer behavior and help them understand some of the shifts that are needed. The next track would be around boosting nature positive production, again, recognizing what I said earlier when I was describing the objective, that we need to reduce the footprint of the agriculture sector, of the mechanisms of producing food, all mechanisms of producing food that we are currently using that are degrading the environment and that are degrading our biodiversity, which we also do need as we go forward from a food production perspective. But definitely the level of biodegradation is beginning to impact us, and we cannot afford it. So this track recognizes this is something we need to advance. Then I talked about advancing equitable livelihoods, and I talked about building resilience and vulnerability. And I'm not going to repeat what I said. What I want to dwell on here is to tell you how we are looking at engaging around these tracks. We've been looking around to find institutions that have the capability in terms of two things, that have the technical capability to help us really define what type of game-changing initiatives can happen in this environment, institutions that have the capability to carry the conversations around game-changing initiatives forward. And so we will find those institutions. When we do find them, we will make sure that those institutions have the right level of global perspective, ensuring that we do have a perspective of the North as well as a perspective of the South. But there's one other perspective that we thought that is extremely critical, and I thank Her Excellency the Deputy Secretary-General for really emphasizing this point, the perspective of the youth. The perspective of the youth. Each of these tracks will have a youth. I mean, if I give you an example, on my own continent, 77% of the population is youth. So if we don't ask these people who are going to be sitting in anything we are doing to do in a few years' time, who are going to be taking responsibility for it, to be part of the conversation today, we would definitely be missing the point. On the side, you see the levers I talked about, and we will definitely ensure that those levers are being unlocked as we go forward. Again, the idea is that these action tracks can help us unlock conversation. I will come back to that point, but I just wanted to make sure, because it has come up several times, that countries do understand that this is a place where we expect them to put their best foot forward and tell us how they want to engage, but also really engage to ensure that the outcomes we come up with are owned at country level as well. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. Can we have the next slide, please? So to ensure that these things are owned at country level, we are also looking at food systems dialogues, ensuring that the food system dialogue conversation is happening at country level. We have 3 dialogues in every country. And the reason we have 3 dialogues is simple. Well, we need to introduce the conversation at the country. We need to ensure that the people are asking the right questions. We need to feed back their questions into the science, into the action tracks, and we need them to start making sure that they are getting help and support from the science, from the action tracks, so that the last conversation is really about commitments and actions coming from countries and coming from communities. So we are designing these dialogues. We do have definitely global level dialogues like we are having now, and like we will have through action tracks and through our champions networks. And then we'll have a different type of dialogue that is independent, that is through what we are calling online platforms and dialogue in a box that people can use from an online perspective. And one of the UN agencies that we were talking to earlier was telling us how they do have capabilities in that, really to provide an opportunity for communities that want to engage and give us their views, their ideas, but also tell us the solution they are sitting with that we have no visibility of, bring them forward and help ensure that those solutions are part of where we are going. Next slide. I talked a little bit about the Champions Network, and this slide is just to help elaborate what I talked about earlier. Again, for us, we do recognize the need to reach as many people as possible. At the end of the day, food is a very complex global problem, but it's also a very personal choice. Each of us makes a decision to eat 3 times a day, and those decisions impact our food systems as much as the conversations we are having here and the conversation that we have at community and at national and global level. So the need for champions is recognizing that through a cascade and a network of champions, we can reach more people than us as a secretariat can reach. We can reach more people than even any of the instruments we put in place reach. So we are asking our champions to build networks of their own, and we are building a mechanism of tracking and following up, but also a mechanism of getting feedback. And again, I have an ask on this point at the end of the presentation that I want to bring to you all. Next slide. So I've talked about the instruments of the summit. Maybe now is the time that I bring to your attention the different phases of the summit and what we've been doing. Today, where we are at, most of these things have happened. We are past the first advisory committee, which happened in July. We are past a number of instruments. All these instruments that I've told you are set to be in place, and on October, in the week of October 12th, all these things will be rolled out. So the good news from where I'm sitting as a person who is responsible for ensuring that all these things are in place, the good news is all these instruments will be in place and will be rolled out, and will be the global dialogue and indeed a deep and global dialogue will start. Will be kicked off on the week of the 12th. Again, 1 year after the Secretary-General announced the launch of the Food System Summit, we hope that in this 1 year that now remains, really gives us an opportunity to have all the conversations, ask all the questions, but really end with one thing: critical and really ambitious action to get us back on track. Because like many people tell me, not getting back on track, not doing the right thing is not an option for us. So here, this was just to give you a sense of major milestones and major dates that we are looking at. Next slide. Her Excellency the Deputy Secretary General did talk to you about approach to dates and venue. This was just to give you initial ideas. I don't want to dwell on it very much. I do recognize that it is the Secretary General's call. But here, this does provide you a number of scenarios. I mean, does recognize 2 things. It does recognize that since the Secretary General announced the summit last year, COVID happened, and COVID has completely reshaped how business is done in this world, and will do so probably for some time. Recognizing that by end of 2021, if we don't have a globally available vaccine, we definitely will have the summit in a different way than we would have envisioned, or we envisioned when the Secretary General was launching it. So that's really something that is important. We still want to respect the fact that this would have to be a people's summit. So whatever we design, we really need to ensure that all walks of society, different people are able to be reached and to be able to be engaged in the summit. And we want to make sure that whatever happens, we do come down to a moment that does allow us to make real global commitments, but also commitments at different levels of society that can take us forward. So here there are a number of scenarios. Again, you can read through them. I don't want to dwell on them, recognizing that this is something that the Secretary General will come back to you all. But this will give you a base for some of the conversations we might have in this meeting. Next slide. So there are a number of things that I wanted to highlight as I end this presentation. And again, to the points and the request that High Excellency, the Deputy Secretary-General made earlier, we would like you to express interest in action tracks and to be part of action tracks, because again, action is going to be very critical, and action is going to have to be local. So country level engagement is going to be important. And we do recognize different countries have different perspectives, different peculiarities, and these actions are going to have to be anchored in those peculiarities. So your engagement is going to be very critical here, and your expression of interest to step forward in action tracks is important. We do want to grow our champions network. We want it to have a multiplier effect through our champions network, and we do hope that you can put forward names of champions or people you think can really advance the championship of the summit, because I know, and I've talked to all of you, I know many of you care about where we are going with this summit, and helping us mobilize champions would be really good. Her Excellency also called on you to give your ideas and thoughts on summit and venue, and I just wanted to echo that. And then I would also, many times, we've had many conversations, especially with Rome-based agents, permanent representatives, and I really would like to hear your views also on how we, as the community, raise the ambition of this summit and ensure that it delivers the ambitions we want for us to get back on course. Lastly, it's not listed here, but if I don't say it, I would be amiss. We've laid out a huge ambition. I've listened to you all. I've listened to the different groups that we need to be listening to be able to come through on this summit. And we've laid huge ambitions, as you're seeing in this summit. What I would like to end on is to recognize that we, as a Secretariat, we will need you to step forward and help us fund this summit so that we can deliver it. We are committed to delivering it. We are committed to ensuring that this summit delivers its goals, but we'll need your support to be able to do that. So, Excellencies, I end here, and I look forward to all your questions and comments. Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kalibata. I'd like to thank the Deputy Secretary-General and the Special Envoy for their opening statements and steady leadership in the continuing work in preparation for the Food Systems Summit, particularly during the unconventional circumstances brought about by the pandemic. Before opening the floor for the interactive dialogue, I'd like to mention a few important reminders. Please, all participants, keep your microphones muted and video cameras off until called upon to speak. Understandably, there's a lot of interest in intervening in the interactive session with the Deputy Secretary-General. We now have just under 1 hour for the open discussion, and in order to allow as many delegations as possible to take the floor, intervention should be no more than 4 minutes for statements on behalf of groups and 2 minutes for national statements. I apologize in advance if I have to interrupt speakers in the interest of hearing from as many member states as possible during the limited time that is available. In order to make optimal use of the time, I invite delegations to use the all protocols observed formula in taking the floor. When requesting the floor, please press the chat button. In the chat box, please make the request for the floor, indicating the name of your delegation, title, and address your request in the chat box to speakers list. When invited to speak, please remember to unmute your microphone and turn on your camera. When you have concluded your statement, please remember to turn off both your microphone and camera. Finally, please bear with us should there be any technical glitches or delays. With those reminders and introductory remarks, I now give the floor to the permanent representative of Argentina to the UN in New York to take the floor. Your microphone, please.
Okay. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Deputy Secretary-General Amina Mohammed, and Special Envoy of the Secretary-General for the Food System Summit, Madame Agnes Kalibata, for all the information provided. Argentina believes that it's fundamental maintaining a transparent process with the active participation of member states as well as all other relevant stakeholders. To this end, today's briefing has been very useful, and we hope that this engagement is maintained during the whole process. As representative of Argentina in the advisory committee of the summit, you can rest assured that we are ready to engage constructively in the whole preparatory process as well as in the final outcome of the summit. Argentina is fully committed to working actively in having a successful food system summit. Thank you very much.
Thank you to the permanent representative of Argentina. We now turn to the permanent representative of France to the UN in Rome. You have the floor, Madam.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to thank the Deputy Secretary-General and the Special Envoy for their detailed presentation and stress again France's full commitment to achieve a successful and ambitious summit. I'm also pleased to announce a French contribution of $100,000 for the Secretariat of the Summit in order to support, as of today, the preparatory process. Regarding today's briefing, we would welcome additional information on two specific points at this stage. Regarding the action tracks, we would very much appreciate to receive more precise information on the role of the member states and what you expect from their engagement at this point, about the organization of the action track, as well as the timeline for the decision about the membership composition. And in particular, is it possible for member states to engage in different action tracks, or all, or just one? With regard to the Champions Group, we would also welcome more precise information about its composition, objective, and functioning. Thank you very much, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you very much. I now turn to the Ambassador for Sustainable Development of Sweden in New York. You have the floor. I now turn to the permanent representative of the Netherlands to the UN in New York. Madame, you have the floor. Let me then give the floor to the permanent representative of New Zealand to the FAO.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and join others in thanking both the Deputy Secretary-General and the Special Envoy for their really helpful briefings. First of all, I'd just like to echo the comments made by my colleague from France. The wonderful thing about the summit is that it is so inclusive, and there are so many ways in which people can contribute. The challenge for all of us as member states is it will, of course, be shaping and timing our own inputs to make sure that we can support this summit in the best way possible. Your briefing today has been very helpful in that regard, but I would echo my colleague from France's request on an ongoing basis, just to help us understand of the many different entry points for us, the action tracks, the national dialogues, the regional conferences and so forth, how we can best make sure that we time and shape our inputs in order to support the process in the best possible way. So obviously an initial priority in that regard will be the action tracks and how we can contribute to those. But I think this will be an ongoing challenge with all of us, just making sure we understand when our input would be most valued and in what form. Secondly, I just wanted to note once again how grateful we are that concerns that we've been raising about making sure that broad participation of all possible communities and voices is included in the summit. A particular concern for us has always been making sure that the perspectives of small and developing states, and particularly those in the Pacific, are important. Are fully reflected, and in this regard we are delighted that we have some representatives both of SIDS and of the Pacific on the advisory committee, because we do genuinely believe, particularly in the area of sustainable fisheries, that there are some concerns there that perhaps not unique but uniquely important in our regional and developmental context. Finally, just to note that there are some elements in particular that we're really hopeful to see reflected in the outcomes of the summit, not just in the action tracks, but in the broader conceptions that underlie our understandings that we reach in the summit. It'll be very important for us that we see a credible outcome with regard to climate change and understanding how we can manage the impacts of agriculture on climate change and sustainable agriculture. It will be very important for us that we see a genuine understanding of the importance of trade for many countries and the fundamental importance of well-functioning trade for the food security in many countries. It'll be important for us that we see a full reflection of the importance of innovation and both of encouraging but also sharing and supporting the uptake of different solutions in different settings. And it will be really fundamental for us to make sure that the outcomes reflect the complex nature of food systems, and by that I mean that they are not just things that we as diplomats and broader thinkers think is important for food systems, but that they fully involve the actors in food systems themselves, and that's everyone from the farmers to the distributors to the harvesters to the rural communities in which they're based. Really, no change will be possible without their cooperation and input, and the consequences of what we decide will obviously be felt most heavily by them. So it's really important that they are a key part of the conversation. Finally, we are very, very interested in the science, in keeping this as science-based as possible. And in this regard, we are very interested in understanding a bit more how the scientific committee will be operating, how it will be feeding in, and broader questions around transparency and how member states can engage with that side of things as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The floor goes next to the permanent representative of the European Union, the UN in Rome, speaking on behalf of the European Union. You have the floor, Madam.
Yes, thank you very much, and good day to all of you. Madam Deputy Secretary-General, Madam Special Envoy for the Food Security Summit, colleagues, my name is Alexandra Valkenburg, and I recently started here as permanent representative of the European Union to the UN organizations in Rome. I very much welcome this briefing and your leadership in stimulating and enhancing the implementation of the SDGs through the implementation of this summit. I think we all agree that we need to intensify and focus our actions. Let me assure you that the EU is committed to contribute to the preparation of the summit and identifying actions and solutions for this summit. We very much welcome the multi-stakeholder approach. I think it is important that it is indeed an inclusive summit. Let me just ask a few concrete points following up on the briefing. I think we would be very interested to hear from you which UN agencies are involved, are the custodian of the different action tracks. I second also the remarks by France on how members can be involved in these action tracks. As you know, we are committed to the subject. We have, as an EU, a Green Deal approach, including a farm-to-fork strategy, a biodiversity strategy. We are committed to a climate neutrality by 2050. So I think our objectives fit very well with the objectives of the summit. Final point, maybe the EU is in principle ready to consider funding the Preparatory Trust Fund for the summit, but we would need some more information on the process, on the budget, to be able to take a decision on that. So we would welcome more information on that. Once again, let me say that the EU stands ready to work with you and the members throughout the preparation and to make the Food Security Summit a success. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Ambassador. Let me now go back to the permanent representative of the Netherlands to the UN in New York, Ms. Joke Brandt. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, and I do apologize for the technical hiccup just now. And let me thank the Deputy Secretary-General and the Special Envoy for their presentations and for their leadership in shaping the preparations for the summit. And we can assure you that the Netherlands is fully committed to a successful outcome of the summit. And to this end, we are ready to mobilize Dutch scientific institutions, businesses, and civil society in a collaborative effort to contribute to its success. And I very much liked what both the Deputy Secretary-General and the Special Envoy said about this being a people's summit, a solutions summit with a very strong focus on innovative solutions. Let me just briefly mention 3 points that we took from the presentation. First, on the science policy interface, we feel that it's extremely important if you want to make well-informed decisions about the future of food systems, then both governments, the private sector, and civil society organizations, as well as consumers, need access to the best scientific insights. And currently, we lack a mechanism for gathering, analyzing, and organizing all knowledge that is relevant for such political and social decision-making. We hope that the scientific group will be instrumental in helping this this process to advance in the years ahead, and are happy that Professor Fresco from the Netherlands can contribute to this in her role as vice chair of this group. Very much also support what others have said about the importance of an inclusive multi-stakeholder approach. Dialogue and partnership between public and private sector, NGOs, and knowledge institutions have been at the heart of the Netherlands' success in the agri-food sector. And we feel that such a multi-stakeholder inclusive approach is vital if we are to achieve the objectives of the summit. 3, as the Deputy Secretary-General and the Special Envoy also outlined, the different objectives and action tracks of the summit are interlinked. So we should make sure that they operate in synergy. And the best way to do this, according to us, would be through concrete country case studies, which combined with national dialogues would best inform the summit on what is meant by food systems approach and which interventions would be most promising in terms of impact and scalability. And then, as was also pointed out, important that the national governments can take the lead in translating these food system analysis and dialogues into concrete policies. Just to conclude, we are looking forward to our continued engagement, including in the group of friends on food security and nutrition that we proudly founded in 2016, and are determined to work with you to promote a global food system that can deliver on the needs of everyone, especially the most vulnerable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. The floor now goes to the permanent representative of Morocco to the UN in New York, Ambassador Omar Ilale, and you will be followed by the permanent representative of Egypt, Ambassador Mohammed Idris.
Thank you very much. First of all, thanks and gratitude to my dear sister, DSG Amina Mohammed, for organizing this timely briefing to exchange views on the Food System Summit that will take place on 2021. Special thanks to Special Envoy, my dear sister Agnes Kalibata, for the comprehensive presentation and all the updates provided today. This is very helpful for all of us in order to shape our path towards the summit, and it will be helpful to circulate the presentation for the information of our capitals. We understand that the summit needs to offer catalytic moment for global public mobilization and actionable commitments. For this, my delegation have few proposals, actionable tracks in order to start constructive and action-oriented brainstorming toward this important summit. First, we need to start clustering efforts starting today around concrete and region-specific actions to make food system inclusive, climate adapted, and resilient. As a representative of the African group in the advisory committee, Morocco and Liberia would be very happy to facilitate this effort in the context of our region. Two, fostering and encouraging private-public partnership and initiatives that meet the objectives of the Food System Summit should be one of our main action points. Without real participation in this endeavor by key economic food clusters and actors, we cannot pretend shaping a meaningful transformation of food system in future. Three, the challenge is also financing small farmers and medium-sized agriculture that constitute most of the social fabric in developing countries. One of the main challenges of Africa agriculture is the lack of investment, as many farmers don't have access to affordable loans and other investment sources. Agriculture finance, especially for small and medium-sized actors, deserve our attention. Four, finally, making our efforts meaningful for various stakeholders and to a larger public is fundamental. We need to start shaping our communication channels, starting today in order to reach out and mobilize relevant civil society voices, especially in the rural world and among young and women entrepreneurs. The COVID-19 era is offering us tremendous opportunities to act quicker and in a more holistic manner. Therefore, we shall use them in the most efficient manner. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. Ambassador Idris, Permanent Representative of Egypt, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Michelle, and our utmost appreciation to the distinguished DSG and distinguished Special Envoy. And really, the earnest preparation process raises ambitions and expectations. We welcome the convening of the Food System Summit in 2020, and we believe it has been more pertinent than ever after the COVID-19 pandemic. And really, it shows us, this pandemic, that attaining food security might indeed be a great global challenge for everyone, particularly the most vulnerable and marginalized communities. Africa has suffered for long and continues to suffer from challenges in achieving food security due to the repetitive cycles of droughts, desertification, and the lack of advanced agricultural technologies. This applies to almost all regions of our continent, and this situation was there before COVID-19 and was further complicated due to the pandemic. Thus, it's important that the international community acts collectively, affirmatively, to address such challenges. If we are serious about achieving SDGs, the Food Security Summit is hence certainly a crucial step in the right direction. Also, I'd like to highlight the linkages between this process and the other Rio conventions, the climate change, biodiversity, and desertification, and also building on the previous food security achievements in order to have a synergetic effect. I would like to seek clarification on some issues. One point is the envisaged product or outcome of the summit. Are we talking about declaration, political statement? Other is how we can make this outcome actionable. And the third is other certain envisaged follow-up mechanisms in this process. And already the Special Envoy highlighted that if the uncertainties of COVID continues through 2020, there could be other formats envisaged for convening this summit. Does it mean that it could be a virtual summit, for example? Once again, I would like to thank the DSG and the Special Envoy for their very informative presentations today and assure everyone of Egypt's commitment to work collectively to make such an important exercise a successful one. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Idris. The next speaker is the Ambassador for Sustainable Development of Sweden, Ambassador Carlotta Schlichter. You have the floor.
Thank you so much. It seems I had better luck with my technology this time.
Wonderful.
Yes, thanks. Excellency, DSG, and esteemed Special Envoy, thank you for this briefing and your thoughtful remarks. Sweden strongly supports the organizing of the summit, and we would like to work with you to make it a success. A food systems transformation is indeed a must and has to be based on the 3 dimensions of social, economic, and ecological sustainability. All this to make our food systems more sustainable and our diets healthier as well to achieve the SDGs. We very much support the track approach that you have outlined. And I take this opportunity to reaffirm our interest in participating as stakeholders in Action Track 2, so the shifting to sustainable consumption patterns. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. The floor goes next to the Permanent Representative of the United States to the UN in Rome. Ambassador Kitom, you have the floor.
Deputy Secretary-General Amina, Mohammed, and Special Envoy Agnes Kalibata for this opportunity for convening us today to provide this update. The United States welcomes the naming of the Action Track chairpersons, and we look forward to frequent and very soon interaction with those chairpersons on those action tracks. And we also look forward to the announcement soon of the initial Champions Network members. So this summit comes on the heels of a global pandemic, as we're all aware, and it offers a unique opportunity to celebrate the diverse utility and applicability of varied food systems and focus on concrete ways to deepen capacity and build resilience.
Excuse me, Ambassador, your volume is quite low. Is there an adjustment you can make?
Yes. Is that better? Test, test.
Yes, please proceed.
So the summit comes on the heels of our global pandemic that we've been going through here, and it offers a unique opportunity to celebrate the diverse utility and applicability of varying food systems. It's still not coming through.
It's very low.
Okay, I've got it up as high as I can go right now. Tell you what, go on to the next person. I'll see if I can find another alternative. Sorry.
I think we're good now, Ambassador. Please go ahead.
So we cannot waste this opportunity, is what I wanted to say. And as the summit presents, we must focus on critical core areas such as innovation, productivity growth, improved nutrition, well-functioning markets, and open trade. And doing so will yield our shared objectives, providing a steady, affordable supply of diverse, nutritious foods while safeguarding livelihoods, creating jobs, conserving natural resources, and contributing to sustainable development. It will actually give us the opportunity to achieve SDG 2, hopefully by 2030. Research, science, and adoption of the use of innovation technology should be foundational pillars of our collective approach as we move through this process. And the summit should serve as a forum for all stakeholders to exchange knowledge and practical solutions on promoting resiliency in food systems within the context of SDG 2 and all 3 pillars of sustainable development: environmental, social, and economic. And all tools for providing food systems must be considered. We must work together to expand options and opportunities instead of limiting them. And finally, we need to evaluate our efforts to improve the sustainability of agriculture against measurable outcomes on food affordability, accessibility, farmers' incomes, and farm profitability, well-being, environmental indicators. As I say often, we are the solution for climate, and we cannot simply categorize particular agricultural approaches as sustainable or unsustainable. We must do the hard work of assessing real impacts and outcomes. Our time is short, and we need to move fast. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. And we would be grateful if also you would share your statement for the first few elements of your remarks. Thank you very much. The floor is now goes to the permanent representative of Germany in Rome. The floor is yours, Excellency.
Thank you very much, Deputy Permanent Representative, actually. So first of all, let me thank the Deputy Secretary-General and the for the presentation. I think it's very helpful to have this also in New York because it was much centered on Rome for the time being. As you know, Germany is very much committed and will certainly make a contribution. However, we need a bit more clarity on the trust fund, on the funding agreements in order to go ahead with that. For the sake of time, I will focus just on two questions. The one being, you mentioned the food system dialogues in the countries. Could you please elaborate a bit more on that? By whom and how these dialogues will be organized? Second question, it was already mentioned the group of friends, the informal group of friends of the Food System Summit in Rome. This informal group has decided to dedicate the future meetings on the individual action tracks. So in order to prepare for the coming meetings of the group, it would be very helpful to know what the Secretariat plans in terms of concrete outputs of the preparatory process on the action tracks in the near future. In particular, it would be useful to know whether and in case by when the Secretariat plans to release any written material on the action tracks, which then could form the basis for focused discussions in the group of friends in Rome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency. I give the floor now to the permanent representative of Italy in Rome. Ambassador Lo Monaco, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me.
Clearly, yes.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon or good morning, depends on where we are. Anyway, I want to thank, first of all, the Deputy Secretary-General and the Special Envoy for this meeting. And thank you for the information you shared with us today. I want to confirm full support of Italy to the Food System Summit. It represents an unprecedented occasion to tackle the multiple issues related to the transformation of our food systems into a more sustainable model, as the current crisis caused by COVID-19 shows more than ever. Italy's commitment is full and concrete from all the actors of the agri-food system. We are member of the advisory committee, and we look forward to work closely with the special envoy to make the summit a success. In this sense, we call for an inclusive and comprehensive preparation, integrating the different action tracks and the different offices in Rome, New York, and Nairobi involved in the process. A briefing from the chair of a scientific group, for example, could be very important. The deliverable of the summit have to be based on sound scientific evidence that are key for their concrete follow-up. This is why an interaction with the scientific group is essential for all member states. And I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. The floor now goes to the permanent representative of Fiji in New York, Ambassador Prasad. You may proceed.
Thank you very much, and DSG and Special Envoy. Thank you for extensive briefings. I would just like to commend your team, Special Envoy, for excellent work and reaching out to the small island states of the Pacific, and your Deputy Envoy's time that he spent with us, briefing us on shaping the summit. And we really welcomed this level of engagement in shaping the summit going forward. I'd also like to report for other regions that this has generated a lot of interest in the small island states of the Pacific.
they have said sort of unanimously that food security in the COVID context is perhaps their number one socioeconomic fallout, and within a context of climate crisis, this is especially enhanced. And so they're looking to the Food System Summit in very pragmatic ways, and hoping to use the platform and opportunities to develop new partnerships as well as learn from new technologies. My one suggestion for all of us is that the summit also offers us a great opportunity to bring many pieces of the puzzle together on food systems. For example, within the GCF and GEF, we are doing interesting work on biodiversity and food and sustainable energy and food, and that some of these things have far-reaching consequences for many, many countries. And it's a great opportunity to learn from each other. And my next suggestion is that we have a financing for development piece that is coming through, that is shaping up, and perhaps we have not elevated food systems and food security as much as we can in that framework, and we might want to take a fresh look at it and with this food systems lens and elevate it. Thank you very much.
Councillor Zhu, you may take the floor. Excellent. Please proceed. The representative of China.
Could you hear me?
Now we can. Please proceed, Councillor Zhu. You have the floor.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you very much for giving me the floor. First, my delegation welcome the Secretary-General to convene the Food System Summit in 2021. And I really appreciate DSG to put us together for this important briefing. Moderator, China's delegation is pleased to see the summit will take people first and focus on solutions for food security worldwide. The impact of the COVID-19 on poverty eradication, hunger, for all of us, especially people from Sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia, are unfolding. Just like Ambassador Idris said, which I fully agree. We believe the summit should focus on helping those most vulnerable and really to achieve no one left behind. I would like to share several thoughts. First, we need to rely on science, technology, innovation for sustainable production and consumption to feed people. The international community should help different countries to equip with technologies to increase productivity of food, the storage of food, and the way of achieving sufficient nutrition and healthy diets. Second, we need to mobilize more public awareness to take actions for achieving food security. Each year, there are hundreds of millions of pounds food being wasted. In China alone, each year, there are 17 million or 80 million food being wasted. President Xi Jinping has launched a national campaign to clean the plate, which is not only helpful to save food, but also important to increase the awareness of people to be thrifty and environmentally friendly, being sensitive on that. Moderator, we appreciate the establishment of the advisory committee, which is chaired by Madam DSG. China will be supportive, as we used to be, both through the advisory committee and the intergovernmental consultation process for the summit, to make sure that the summit will have concrete outcome for the implementation of the 2030 agenda, especially on those targets and goals on eradicating poverty and ending hunger. With that, thank you very much, Michelle.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zhu. The floor now goes to the representative of Switzerland, Ms. Palazzo. Please proceed. Switzerland, you have the floor.
First of all, my apologies that our DPR had an emergency and he had to attend another meeting, and that I am presenting this statement in his place. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Mrs. Mohammed, Mrs. Kalibata, we thank you very much for convening this briefing on the 2021 Food Systems Summit, and Switzerland welcomes the recent developments towards this important that we bring about a transformation towards sustainable and resilient food systems worldwide. This transformation will also make an important contribution to the broader 2030 agenda, as food systems are linked to most of the other topics in the SDGs. Therefore, Switzerland sees the summit as an important milestone to generate a momentum for the decade of action to deliver the global goals. Making the transformation happen requires broad dialogue that is inclusive of all relevant stakeholder groups, a common understanding and approach, and most importantly, concrete action involving actors from various sectors, both towards the summit as well as beyond. The Food Systems Summit could thus not be timelier, and we consider that the process that has been developed by Mrs. Kalibata and her team is solid and inclusive, and has a strong potential to reach the ambitious objectives of the summit. We thank her and her team for their work so far and look forward to our continuing fruitful and close collaboration. Switzerland is committed to the process and to attaining good outcomes. For Switzerland, it is fundamental to guarantee food safety in order to ensure food security. Indeed, if it is not safe, it is not food. Moreover, there is no food security without food safety. The consumption of contaminated food, despite the nutrients it may contain, results in foodborne diseases, which can have serious consequences for the consumer's health and life. Therefore, Switzerland welcomes the emphasis on food safety and nutrition in the Food Systems Summit objectives as follows. First, ensuring access to safe and nutritious food for all. Second, shifting to sustainable consumption patterns. Third, boosting nature-positive production at sufficient scale. The summit will be an excellent opportunity to call upon member countries to participate actively in the standardization work of the FAO and WHO Codex Alimentarius Commission, to encourage them to adopt Codex standards in the national legislation and to ensure their effective implementation. In this way, the first objective above can be achieved by ensuring the protection of the health of all consumers, those in the country of production, as well as those in the importing country. Lastly, Switzerland is preparing in a coordinated effort between our mission in Rome, the Swiss Embassy, the Istituto Svizzero, and PRS, an event in Rome from the 20th to 24th of October called Bites of Transfoodmation, where a group of young motivated people like entrepreneurs, students, researchers, with the support of a small group of animators, will project themselves towards a time where personalized diets will be a key element of the determinants of health within a given society. They will discuss how best getting there by shaping the future food systems while assuring the respect of planetary boundaries. Thank you very much.
Very much. We have two remaining speakers, after which we will then turn to the Deputy Secretary General to respond and offer any clarifications. The floor now goes to the Permanent Representative of Finland to the UN in Rome, and to be followed by the representative of Uruguay. Ambassador Lasila from Finland, you have the floor, please.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Very clearly, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And let me also start by thanking the Deputy Secretary General and the Special Envoy for the opportunity to interact and have this dialogue, and also for your great efforts to move ahead with this important summit and for the progress made. And thank you for making the point that this summit should be People's Summit. And in this respect, I would like to ask about the role of rural women and female farmers and producers in this process. You mentioned, for example, the need to put emphasis on young people, But I would like to know more about how are you going to make sure that each action track will really mainstream important issues such as gender equality. This is a crucial point for Finland, but it's also a critical point for the success of the summit and its impact on the ground. I would also welcome further information about the budget. Is there a revised budget considering the changed circumstances? And also, I would very much welcome clarification on which agencies and the names of the persons who will chair and lead the work of each action track. This is a crucial information for us so that we can start really actively engaging with the work of the action tracks and the substance. Thank you very much.
Uruguay, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, Chair. I would like to say that we think that this summit is a very, very important opportunity to discuss such a relevant issue. We are more than ever convinced that food systems need to be transformed if we want to achieve food security and at the same time preserve or restore natural resources and ecosystem services. We have to look at both sides, more food, but without negatively affecting the environment. Uruguay is a country that produces food for many other people. We are 3 million, but we produce food for 30 millions. And we are committed to do it with environmental value added to our products. Finally, I would like also to share that there are other processes with which this summit could have synergies. In particularly, I am following the UNFCCC negotiations in the agriculture agenda item, and there we have the Coronivia joint work on agriculture, and this work is linking responses to climate change, in particular adaptation co-benefits, including mitigation, with food security. So this process, I think that should somehow be connected or dialogue, because we are all looking for common concerns. So this would be my final suggestion, that we could find a way to link and not to work isolated or separate when we are dealing with common challenges. Thank you very much, and we are willing to continue contributing to this process. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to the representative of Uruguay. I thank all delegations for their comments and questions, and I now invite the Deputy Secretary-General to respond.
Thank you very much, Excellencies, and this has been an incredibly constructive and very supportive feedback to the work that, of course, Agnes Kalibata and her team have put in place. The Secretary-General has been always pushing on the point that this must be an inclusive process, and in that process, we must not be prescriptive. We must allow these discussions to happen both at the global, the regional, and the local level in our countries. So much to define in the coming months as we go to the summit. There are many moving parts. As we said, we are trying to make this a people summit, solutions-oriented, local and global. And I know that in each one of those parts, we will have a considerable amount of detail to share. For want of time, those details were not quite given today. We will share with you the presentation, and in the coming days and weeks, the team will share with you other details. This is a process that will be integral to other processes. We're making sure that we are leveraging the synergies and the work of the climate summit coalitions from last year into this year, into COP, in particular to the decade of action on the SDGs, to the socioeconomic response we see at the country level. And a lot of work will be done, leveraging the capacities of the UN country teams across the globe. So I hope that you will see both from Rome to New York. We will leverage the group of friends. We will leverage the different discussions that we have on other issues that are dovetail and are aligned with the Food System Summit objectives. To save time, there's a number of details that I think you may have answered for you now. And if I could hand over to Agnes to do that. She works day and night on this to perhaps follow up on some of the questions that you've just asked now, and then committing, of course, to get back to you in due course on the other details. So Agnes, would you like to address some of those very specific details which are important to us going forward, particularly on the processes and the budgets and those people that they would be interfacing with?
Thank you, Your Excellency, Deputy Secretary-General, and thank you, Excellencies, for all the comments and questions and recognition of the work that has been done so far to advance the Food System Summit. I'll go country by country, permanent representative by permanent representative, so that I make sure that I don't skip many of the questions that were asked. I note the contribution of Argentina and really welcome their commitment and the support they were talking about, but also the need for transparency. We do note that, and we'll definitely continue to ensure that characterizes the process. I welcome the contribution of France in terms of supporting the Food System Summit. Again, I called for support to the Secretariat, and any support we can get to advance all this work we are doing will be really appreciated. The question that was asked is around how to engage in tracks. Do we engage in one track, or do we engage across different tracks? I must say this is a conversation that we are having, but I want to underscore one thing, that as I said from the very beginning, we do recognize the interconnectedness of different tracks and how a game-changing action could actually be could cut across several action tracks. So we'll come back to you on that point because this is a conversation we are having to understand how we build a coherent system within with regards to how we move the tracks forward. So thank you for the question. There was another question that was asked around action tracks as well, and I'll get to it in a minute. The New Zealand, the permanent representative from New Zealand, I do appreciate all the inputs you mentioned, and I want to reassure you that we are as concerned about island states and the states in the Pacific, and we've been actively reaching out to them. I have engaged with a number of states in there, but also Martin, my deputy, has been working to reach out to these countries and these communities. And your concern, you mentioned it in the previous meeting, and we did take it seriously, and we did take it on board. We do recognize the need to include some of the communities that are impacted by like you said, fisheries communities and others. And there are others in different continents as well, pastoralist communities and all. And all these communities are being brought on board as well. I just wanted to reassure you of our commitment to that fact.
Madam Special Envoy, might I invite you to cluster some of the responses, because we have only about 10 minutes remaining. And I know delegations would like to have as comprehensive responses as possible, and what's not possible, we'll come back offline. But just so you can get as much as you can. Thank you so much. No,
thank you. I'll just keep it short. To the point that was raised by EU and the commitment of EU to support the summit and my stakeholder engagement, I just wanted to recognize that the question was specific as to which UN agencies are supporting action tracks, and that information will be provided. I apologize that it was not indicated here, but the information will be provided as soon as we leave this meeting. We welcome the consideration for funding, and we will provide detailed information to you and other member states that have asked for that information. We appreciate the contribution from the Netherlands, and again, we do note the need for inclusivity and multi-stakeholder approach, and the need to focus on the science of the summit. And I want to reassure you that that's being done. The point that was made around whether the chair of the scientific group could be engaging with you and probably other people, we welcome that because we are also thinking about how they can engage with the action tracks. Morocco, we welcome all the communications you made and your proposed ideas and to foster public-private partnerships to move the summit forward, but also to support and how to support some of the most vulnerable, including smallholder farmers, and to move forward the youth voice. Egypt, again, I recognize the need to link with existing commitments. So you mentioned the Rio Convention, and I must say it was an oversight on my part not to show those linkages, but I think Her Excellency, the Deputy Secretary-General brought that out. On Sweden, I do take your note of your contribution on shift to sustainable sustainable production. The USA, I do take note of the comments you made and want to reassure you that we are committed to using science as the base of the work we are doing. On German, and we will come back to you on the trust fund questions that you asked and the necessary, the need to understand the agreements that need to be done. And you asked how the dialogues are organized. Again, in the interest of time, we will come back to you on this question, but I would say that this is advanced, and as I said earlier, this will be launched around the October the 12th. So definitely we'll get back to you. I do appreciate the comments from the permanent representative of Italy and the comments from the permanent representative of Fiji. And I do note all the comments you put forward and concerns in your comments. On China, I do welcome your comment on food waste and the initiatives that your government is taking and what we could learn from this. And definitely we would be looking forward to engage you and the country and communities from within China to see what we can learn. Switzerland, thank you so much for the contribution you've made to the Food Systems Summit preparation process. I wanted to recognize that Switzerland has committed to this process, and we also note your engagement and the need to emphasize food safety. Finland, I wanted again to recognize your contribution. And again, the questions you're asking on the action tracks, this information, I'll make sure that this information is provided in due course on the chairs of the action tracks. I had already said we would be providing this information and we are happy to. We do note the contribution of Uruguay and the need to build on other UN summits that are happening. I should have mentioned that we are already engaged with the Ocean Summit, with the Nutrition Summit that was supposed to be in Japan, and several others. We want to make sure that we are building on all those. And again, Chair, let me conclude again by recognizing and appreciating all the questions and the comments, and I take all the comments as input into our summit preparation process. And thank you, Deputy SG.
Thank you, Madam Special Envoy. You did a stellar job cramming all of that into the last few minutes. Really appreciate that, and we thank all delegations for participating in this briefing. I'd like to reiterate that statements can be submitted to the Secretariat for posting on the Food Systems Summit website and in eDelegate. And also, I am certain that the Special Envoy and her team will be available to respond to any remaining questions delegations may have. Thank you for your participation today. The meeting is adjourned.